We hope you savoured every moment of the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix, because there's a chance the race will not be on the Formula 1 calendar next year. A return to full fan capacity and a packed roster of VIP guests meant that last weekend Monaco was in greater public demand than it has been for many years. But it still has no contract beyond 2022, and as the race organiser continues to clash with F1 chiefs, the future of F1's oldest and most famous race has never seemed less assured. It says much about how complex this issue has become that the usual criticism of Monaco, that it produces a boring race, is well down the priority list, but we'll come to that later. Monaco has enjoyed being an unorthodox race for a long time, best illustrated by the privilege deal it enjoys with its hosting fee. It's still not entirely clear exactly what Monaco pays to be on the calendar. For a long time it was said to have no fee at all, and now it apparently pays a cut price rate. While Liberty Media is understood to be keen to get more money from Monaco, the threats to the race go well beyond Monaco needing to be willing to pay more. Its traditional end of May date is a troubling fixed point in F1's calendar, which needs more flexibility than ever as it swells. This is especially true as the championship wants to switch to a system of grouping more races by region, which Monaco at the end of May would be an obstacle to if F1 wanted to pair, for example, Miami and Canada. Another long-held Monaco guarantee that it doesn't want to part with is the fact it controls its own TV direction. That is something F1 is very keen to change. Remember Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly going side by side up the hill last year? Or how about the moves that George Russell and Lance Stroll pulled on Lando Norris and Yuki Tsunoda respectively in the 2022 race? Of course you don't, because you didn't see them. You didn't even get a replay. There are other commercial factors as well, such as the control of advertising around the circuit. Look at the obvious clash on the start-finish straight, where the Rolex-sponsored bridge is followed immediately by a Tag Heuer bridge advertising the official watch of the Monaco Grand Prix. Rolex is F1's global partner, so how do you think that arrangement goes down commercially? There are even suggestions that the ACM has renewed the tag deal for multiple years, locking in a partner that gives F1 an awkward clash for a race that isn't even confirmed beyond 2022. It's also worth bearing in mind that Monaco's power seems to be waning. A common Monaco misconception is that this race is where a large percentage of big business gets done, but F1 doesn't share that view, and if it ever was a reality, it's one that seems to have been left in the past. Yes, Monaco is still a great race to schmooze sponsors, but so are many others, and new Grand Prix like Miami have massive potential from a corporate point of view. F1 teams do a great job of maximising the commercial opportunities around Monaco, its heritage and its status. But when F1 suggested to the teams in private that Monaco may be lost or moved to a rotation, they apparently indicated it's not irreplaceably important. Our understanding is that teams are at least open to losing the race for a year to help F1 send a message. While there are serious suggestions Monaco may be missing from 2023, a short contract extension would not be a surprise. But it would likely only be a one-year deal unless Monaco accepts the issues F1 has with the race and cedes to certain demands. And even if there is a new contract for next year, it will not be one that F1's hurried into signing. As Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff said, Monaco might have to be willing to embrace the new realities to ensure its ongoing place in 21st century Formula 1. If not, Monaco might find out that it needs F1 more than F1 needs Monaco. It's clear that F1 has several gripes with the Automobile Club de Monaco, rooted in what appears to be an obstinate determination by the Monaco organiser to cling on to old perks and not move with the times. Unsurprisingly, a rift has developed between F1 owner Liberty Media and the ACM. Earlier this year, Michel Bouri, the president of the ACM, addressed what he described as totally false reports that the race will no longer take place. He rejected speculation there will be difficulties in hosting it beyond 2022 and that Liberty is asking for too much money. He suggested it was simply a matter of cementing a final deal for either 3 years or 5. But this seemed an optimistic take. It also seemed to miss the point that suggesting Monaco could move onto a biennial agreement rotating with another European race was not the same as suggesting it would disappear completely. And as far as F1 is concerned in the Liberty Media era, with new territories paying big money deals and races happening in destination cities, Monaco's status has reduced from what it once was. The argument escalated in the days before the 2022 race when an interview was published with Bouri in which he laid into the championship's owners. There's a Bernie Ecclestone-shaped shadow in the background of all this, as Burri basically lamented losing his old mate and having to deal with cash-counting Americans instead. He suggested that Liberty is the party that's being intransigent in negotiations and that all that matters is profitability. Ecclestone is still very close with Burri and is fueling the fire by taking potshots at F1 whenever possible, including a suggestion last week that Liberty doesn't have the balls to cancel the race. Playing chicken with Monaco is a serious power play by F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali given the race's history, its status as an ever-present on the calendar, and the fact it offers a unique spectacle even as F1 relentlessly expands. But it would be a huge risk for Monaco to think this is just a negotiating tactic, because F1 seems very serious. And that has been recognised by an intervention from Prince Albert himself, who we understand met with Domenicali and F1 chief Greg Maffei, a meeting in which Maffei is said to produce the interview in which Burri insulted Liberty. After a COVID-enforced absence from the calendar in 2020 and reduced spectator numbers in 2021, this felt like a proper Monaco Grand Prix again in terms of the event itself. A sellout in Monte Carlo means rather modest figures compared to F1's biggest capacities, around 68,000 ticket holders for the entire weekend. That number, which is almost double Monaco's official population, was reached by Sunday. The streets were packed and the VIPs came in their droves. There are still plenty who see this race as the jewel in F1's crown, and who will consider most of F1's issues nothing more than external factors that pale in comparison to the sheer spectacle of Monaco, especially in qualifying. The drivers say it's a challenge like no other and a track that is still so special to them even though they know the race will most likely be boring and bad. Home hero Charles Leclerc is unsurprisingly among the race's most partisan supporters, and many others share his view that it's an unrivaled experience in qualifying. But the contrast between qualifying and the race is probably the biggest of the year, as Monaco has become increasingly awkward to race around and is particularly incompatible with F1's ever-fattening cars. Even this year's Grand Prix, which was livened up by being a wet-dry race and had a tense finish, suffered from that. Just look at how slow Fernando Alonso could go, several seconds off his potential pace and effectively holding up the entire pack, with Lewis Hamilton unable to make a pass and nobody else in that train able to overtake either. There should also be something much more exciting about the top 4 cars being nose to tail in the closing laps. But with no real overtaking opportunity, the race lacked a proper climax, even with the interesting setup of a Red Bull Ferrari train. Hamilton gets asked about this every year, and every year he calls for change. This year's suggestion from the 7-time world champion was a mandatory 2-stop strategy, but he has previously advocated changing the layouts. Talk of using reclaimed land outside Poitiers to potentially extend the track there will probably come to nothing. The massive development of that area will be used for lavish apartments, villas and the associated architecture. F1 has touted the possibility of changing the chicane at the exit of the tunnel too, which the ACM will apparently not entertain. Which puts us back on the subject of F1 growing frustrated with an apparently unhelpful organiser. You can expect the ACM to lend a sympathetic ear to any complaints about the quality of racing in the dry in Sunday's race and promise to look into it, but it's clear that F1 considers this has only ever been lip service before. Even Leclerc admits it's worth looking into changes to improve the racing as he's desperate for Monaco to stay on the calendar. And it still might. Monaco's USP has always been that it's a relic of the past, but it's getting dangerously close to the drawbacks of that situation outweighing the positives. It would be a surprise if you really have just watched F1's last Monaco Grand Prix, but one thing feels certain. This race, as we all know it, has a limited future. A modified Monaco, if not in terms of layout but various surrounding factors, has a far greater chance of surviving.